Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time looking at my Week 7 match in the CFL, the Critical Force League against DerPlagiator and the Hariyama of Love. As previously discussed in this battle series, I inherited this team at 0-3, was unable to pilot the original team to a successful Week 4 victory and fell to 0-4. Had a very strong rebound in Week 5 off of some Z Hypnosis shenanigans with the Zerkatry, and have since been able to finally implement the changes I wanted to make to this roster to make it a little more comfortable to my play style. And so Week 6 was a very good showing as well. That got me back to 2-4. I am looking to continue this win streak and try to move to 3-3 against Plagiator. And so before we get into that match, though, I do want to take a moment to look at the team he had available to him so that we have a sense of what he was going to likely bring as ways to address me and cause pressure to break my pieces. So go to that. Let me make an adjustment very quickly. Uh, he has a very strong sand core here, Tyranitar, Excadrill, and then to a smaller extent, Stoutland. Just has a very hard to break sand core. Clefable isn't going to be bothered by the sand given its ability. So he has a lot of way, and Alakazam for that matter. So he has a lot of ways to work within the sand without hurting himself. Tyranitar, outside of just its physical prowess, it has very good coverage moves. It has ice attacks to pressure Gliscor. It has rocks to get hazards up. It has T-Wave to spam status. There's just a lot this Tyranitar can do beyond being a physical prowess, and so that's always a concern. Excadrill, fairly scary offensive presence. It does struggle to break Gliscor. It will be reliant on some Iron Head flinching if it wants to push through it, and a Gliscor is in a position to potentially one-hit KO it with Earthquake if depending on my attack investment. So it's a high risk mon for him to bring. It doesn't really do all that well against Pyukumuku either, so it just has a tough matchup in terms of breaking me. And then there's still also Celesteela, who it really doesn't have a way to hit for any solid damage. Clefable, not scared of its offensive prowess. I do have concerns about my ability to break it defensively, just because I don't have a lot of things that hit it for super effective damage. I have Gengar, who doesn't have a strong matchup overall, and Celesteela, who definitely is a reliable way to beat Clefable, but he has other things he needs to address in a matchup like this. And so ensuring he is healthy all game long to break that Clefable is always going to be a concern. Mega Charizard X, not super scared of it. It can't really Dragon Dance while Pyukumuku's alive. It can obviously create a lot of pressure immediately with some attacks like Outrage or Flare Blitz, but it just has a hard time pushing past a healthy Pyukumuku without some kind of sub-toxic shenanigans. Gyarados, pretty much the exact same deal. It does have access to Power Whip, so that is a concern, but it doesn't have the ability to run Dragon Dance while Pyukumuku is around. It can, again, go for sub-toxic sets to try to break it, but that gets beyond the scope of what Gyarados is really good at and puts it into like a more niche setup, which I do have some solutions for. Alakazam, just a solid, strong hitter. It underspeeds Lopunny, though, and that obviously is going to be a troublesome scenario for it, just because I can always run Fake Out Quick Attack or Fake Out U-Turn, ways to get past Sash sets, and then it has no defense to reliably tank a hit from Lopunny. Celebi, same thing. It has some things to play with Psychic or Scarf or some other sets, but it's very, very, very vulnerable to U-turn, and it doesn't have a great way of dealing with the Celesteela. Rabambi, pretty much just a web setter, not scared of it offensively. It does underspeed Mega Lopunny, so Lopunny is in a position to easily push past something like Rabambi, although I do need to be careful with fake outs because I can't actually fake out a Rabambi thanks to its ability. And so I want to be careful not to get myself caught off guard by that. Phalanx, not really worried about, just because it needs too much setup to get going, doesn't break Pyukumuku. Stoutland, banded sets could be problematic, but not overly worried. And then Pachirisu, who is being more or less considered a non-factor, just because it doesn't have any sort of way to do anything beyond some Super Fang shenanigans, but Gliscor can handle that really well. So that's the team he had available to him. He does have access to a couple of Z crystals, as I mentioned previously. This is a Z crystal league. Celebi can run any type of Z crystal at once, with Omniboost Z crystals being banned. And then Gyarados has attack Z crystals. The only real concern there is both of them running it, or either of them having Grassinium Z, because that's a good, reliable way to one-hit KO Pyukumuku or get it to a point where it's beyond salvaging. So that's something I'm trying to be wary of and scouting for in this game, but otherwise not too worried about those Z crystals. So with that in mind, this is the team I generally assembled as a way to address that. Mega Lopunny is just going to again be a reliable offensive pressure. I opt to go for the Adamant Nature set just because I'm betting on Rabambi also going to be a Modest set, because Timid Rabambi doesn't outspeed Lopunny, and then it can reliably run Modest and outspeed my next fastest thing, which I believe is my Shaman. I may have something slightly faster, but it doesn't outspeed Modest Rabambi. And so I wasn't expecting any type of I wasn't expecting him to speed creep in case I went for a change in set, so I am gambling on that. But I do like the extra bit of damage output, especially when it comes to trying to break Clefable in a late game scenario. I wanted to be able to hit as hard as possible, so I opt for that. Fake out, U-turn, Drain Punch, Return. Drain Punch just because the things I want to hit with fighting attacks are going to be really weak to fighting attacks. We're talking things like Tyranitar or Stoutland, so I might as well get HP back for doing it because I don't need all of the power of close combat. Celesteela, I'm opting for a automized set to sweep with because Rock Slide, Heavy Slam, and Earthquake just eviscerate everything. I'm giving myself an Akaberry as a way to maybe survive a Flare Blitz from Charizard or a Fire Punch from Tyranitar if they carry coverage moves for Celesteela. But after an Automize, I threaten to tear through his team if a couple of pieces are weakened. My speed creeping is to outspeed, I believe it's Alakazam or Rabambi. I cannot recall which, but I outspeed as fast as non-Scarf Mon by 1. And so with that, after an Automize, I do outspeed pretty much the entire team except for Scarves. And so I'm able to be in a good position to try and sweep. Or the rest just thrown into the HP, but otherwise hitting as hard as possible with my attack stat. Gliscor, after some of the concerns with my health management last week on the Gliscor, because I was reliant on him getting wish support, I opt to go back to Roost this week. Swords Dance, Facade, and Earthquake, just the combination of attacks hits really hard. Some decent defensive investment, so I'm able to take a couple of hits, especially if I have to deal with Excadrill in this match. You know, reliable HP, and then I believe I am outspeeding 285. I believe that was to outspeed Gyarados or speed tie Gyarados. Yeah, I think that was to outspeed or 286. Yeah, because Gyarados had a 285 set, as I recall. So I was outspeeding Gyarados by 1, and just in case I needed to go first. Otherwise, just a traditional wall setup and try to break things with the Facade Earthquake combination. Pyukumuku remains mostly defensive because, again, I needed to handle Excadrill, Tyranitar, and uh, Mega Charizard X, so I need his ability to do that. I don't see much value in going for any sort of soak trapping, so I'm running the usual Mirror Coat and counter sets with some Toxic and Recover. Florges, again, being used as a special or a defensive wall with some wish support. Defog, because he has an easy time setting rocks. He's a lot of good rock setters, and I'm, again, not opting for hazards here, so I want to be able to not get whittled down too much by rocks throughout a game. Otherwise, Standard Moonblast is the coverage move. Finally, Shaman. I forget to put an item on Shaman. Just an oversight, quick prep, and then I just kind of forgot to come back to it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at the time. Aromatherapy, Earth Power, Seed Flare, Air Slash, just because they're really good coverage. I'm forced to run Max Speed Timid just because of Mega Charizard X and we speed tie, so I need to be in a position where I can hit it with Earth Powers late game if it's weak, or at least be in speed tie scenarios. So I opt for that. So that's the team I brought. That's generally what I was trying to do. I was hopeful I could try and bring the Electros. Electros overall had a decent matchup, but I just couldn't find a wiggle room to fit it in there, and I was worried about Mold Breaker Excadrill as a way to get around that. So I didn't want to take my chances, and so I opt for more conventional options. So we'll get into the game. It is slightly longer, so I will try to let it play at normal speed and minimize the amount of times I pause. I opt for a Florges lead because Florges is safe. I expect Rabambi is going to come out, and I don't want to risk anything getting stun spored turn 1 that I don't want. As previously mentioned, I can't fake out Rabambi thanks to its Shield Dust ability. It's immune. Shield Dust or Sweet Veil. I believe it's Shield Dust. It's immune to secondary effects, which means fake out doesn't cause flinching. So I can't try anything with the Lopunny. So Florges is the very safe lead here, turn 1. It gets Rabambi down below half, forces Rabambi out. I expect it's going to switch out. So I'm able to safely defog the webs. So all in all, really in control of what that Rabambi lead was trying to be and able to shut it down. Charizard comes in. I come in with Gliscor. I'm afraid it's going to go for an outrage or something, so I'm going to flee straight to Pyukumuku. I should be just taking a predictive counter here, expecting it to attack, but instead I go for the Toxic. Wasn't sure if it would do enough with Power Whip to put me in 2-hit KO range, but it clearly does. So I need to be a little cautious of that. Back in with Shaman, expecting him to hard switch out because I'm trying to get Pyukumuku's health back up. And so Pyukumuku is able to get itself back to full, which is important here. And then a theme my team has been dealing with is, oh, I'm sorry, this doesn't happen yet. Florges gets back in safely in front of the Celebi. Gyarados is losing health because it's not in a good position. I'm able to go for some Wish passing and then bring Pyukumuku back in because Power Whip's not going to OHKO me. And so Pyukumuku is safe and healthy. Gyarados is getting whittled down due to its Toxic. He comes back in with Celebi. I am forced to flee back to Florges, and for the second consecutive week, Florges gets slapped with a trick for this time. I believe it's a Choice Scarf. So not the worst item to have. Florges, has a solid special attack stat. Now it goes a little faster, so it can outspeed a couple of things by surprise. I'm decently okay with the item it's been given, but Florges being choice locked is never ideal. Tyranitar comes in here. I know Tyranitar is going to have an ice attack. Part of running the Gliscor is you get expectant of which mons are carrying ice attacks. We already saw that Gyarados had Ice Fang, although that seemed very unnecessary. I'm pretty sure Waterfall is just about the same amount of damage when you factor in Stab. So there wasn't a lot gained by running the Ice Fang. But I'm always expecting things like Tyranitar to have Ice Beam or Ice Punch. And I'm expecting Clefable is going to carry Ice Beam as well. So a lot of things to deal with Gliscor, and I just got to be wary of those and see it. I'm going to try to set up with Celesteela here really early in this game because I have that Akaberry, so I'm not too worried about a super effective attack. But I don't think I'm in range yet to kill with Heavy Slam, and unfortunately I am not. And Fire Punch is in range to kill me. So I unfortunately lose Celesteela as a sweeper early on. The only real implication of that is that was easily my best piece in breaking Clefable, and it's out of play. Not ideal. And speaking of which, the Clefable comes in. I don't have a good switch in anymore because I've sacked Celesteela, so I'm sitting in Shaman here, but Shaman's not the best switch in. I'm going to go for a Seed Flare. Celebi's going to resist it because Celebi's got some decent bulk and it resists the Seed Flare naturally. I get caught by a crit, I survive, but Shaman is just already on the cusp of death, which is not ideal. Gliscor in general has a really good matchup at the moment. Again, Clefable comes in here on Gliscor. That just tells me it's carrying Ice Beam, and so I'm just going to flee straight out from that. And in fact, it is running Ice Beam. So now I've scouted where his ice attacks are. I've taken out Tyranitar, so that's one of them gone. Clefable is in here trying to hit me with attacks. Florges is able to mostly wall out what Clefable is trying to do right now. I'm going to get some Moonblast damage on this. I call that he was expecting me to hard switch again because I had been bouncing around back and forth between Florges and Gliscor. What I'm essentially trying to accomplish at this point is scout out Clefable's moves, and then Ice Beam only has 16 PP, and if I can dance around a little bit, I can get that Ice Beam low enough where I can Roost stall with my Gliscor, because when Gliscor clicks Roost, it loses the flying typing, so Ice Beam only becomes a 2x attack rather than a 4x attack. So it just becomes a PP battle because Roost also has 16, so if I can preserve some Roosts while whittling down his Ice Beams, I'm in a position to force Clefable out or force it to try to do more predictive plays so that it can't safely Ice Beam me. Without risking running out of PP. So that's kind of what I'm trying to accomplish at this stage in the game, just dancing around this Clefable. Charizard comes in. I'm going to click Toxic here just to scout if maybe this first was for some reason a unaware Clefable. It's not. It doesn't have much reason to be. My team doesn't scream setup like some other teams might. And so he's going to switch her back in, come in with Rabambi. Again, Gliscor's not scared of that here. Gliscor's more than happy to go for a Facade or go for a Swords Dance. Facade doesn't do much to Clefable, which confirms that this is a defensive Clefable really built to deal with this Gliscor. Clefable is going to come in and Ice Beam. I'm able to go for a Wish here. I could maybe go for a Defog as well, because the real concern with these webs right now is that it really hinders Lopunny's ability to clean up late game. Otherwise, they're not a major concern. But I'm happily sitting in on this Clefable. Pyukumuku has Mirror Coat here, so I'm not too threatened by that Clefable. I know it's going to switch out because it doesn't want to take any damage. Rabambi comes in. I can't risk Floor just dying yet because I still want to defog. And so I'm going to send in a Pyukumuku who doesn't really care about this damage from Rabambi. The Stun Spore is unfortunate. I was caught off guard by that. Going to come back in with Gliscor. He's going to U-turn out with the Rabambi back into Clefable. Again, I know this Clefable has Ice Beam, so Gliscor isn't going to be in a position to stay in here. And so I'm going to bring in Pyukumuku because it's just able to wall it out really well. I'm going to try to go for a Mirror Coat. It teleports out back into Celebi. I'm somewhat nervous about Grass Attacks, obviously, but it goes for Healing Wish. Really caught me off guard. At that stage in the game with Pyukumuku, I was just trying to get rid of the Celebi because it caused some trouble for Gliscor. With the webs down, my Lopunny wasn't going to outspeed it. So if I could get that out of the game, I was willing to take that risk at this stage in the game because I knew Mirror Coat would OHKO it if it tried to Giga Drain or anything like that. So I was fine taking that risk. He comes in with Gyarados. Obviously, this is a huge concern. Gyarados can't set up on me, but with the paralysis, I'm really, really vulnerable to Gyarados just haxing me to death. And so I'm basically forced to click counter and hope I don't get caught by a paralysis. Very fortunately, I do not. So Gyarados is now removed from play for no risk at all by me. I'm going to try to recover here, thinking Charizard doesn't do enough damage. So Charizard goes down, or I'm sorry, Pyukumuku just goes down to the Outrage there. My decision is to bring in Florges because I know he's locked into that Outrage, but I know Florges isn't going to do enough damage. So there's not a lot gained by coming in with Florges, and I'm confident Gliscor is going to survive an unboosted Charizard. And so I'm going to come in with Gliscor just to do some damage. He does crit, super unfortunate crit, does an incredible amount of damage, a very uncomfortable spot, but he hasn't gotten caught by the confusion yet, so I know he's locked into one more Outrage. Floor just gets free entry. He's going to be scared to stay in on that, which I expect, and so I can pivot in safely to Gliscor. It's dawned on me that, because it didn't dawn on me immediately, but it dawned on me in that situation that if I click Roost, I do lose the flying typing, so I should easily survive the Ice Beam from Clefable. I just don't know how much damage it's going to do. So this is a good way to scout out the damage output. It does 45%. The really meaningful thing about that is I'm probably safe from being OHKO'd by Ice Beam. It's going to be super close, 45 to 49%. So I'm clearly in roll range of this Ice Beam killing me. I did not do any calcs for that when I maybe should have. So I could theoretically Swords Dance here to try to set up, but I'm not wanting to take that risk at this stage in the game. Rabambi comes back in. That's a pretty free chance to click Facade or Swords Dance. Again, I could be taking a gamble here and trying to go for some Facade sweeping. I know he's going to click Ice Beam, though, and I'm going to get my Florges in for free here so I can safely defog. And then, as previously discussed, in the last episode, I am willing to sack Florges there because that's going to get me momentum. Because here's the thing. I've now defogged, which means the Clefable's evasion is at 0.75. The important thing about that is now Shaman's Seed Flare is going to hit this Clefable because of that evasion drop. So Clefable is dead. Not dead. Clefable is weakened, which now creates an opening for Mega Lopunny to click Fake Out. Does 19%. It's going to get some leftovers healing to bring it back to 46%. I calced this in retrospect. The very relevant thing here, and ultimately the reason I'm really happy that I ran Adamant Nature, is that I am now in roll range to KO. It's about a 50% chance. I'm pretty sure it's almost exactly a 50% chance whether return does 46% or not. And so I'm in a 50-50 scenario, which would not have existed if I had run the Jolly Nature. I crit. Really unfortunate for him. Obviously, that is significant. If he had clicked Recover there, big deal. If I had not crit and had not KO'd, because he would have won that game at that point. If he had attacked me with Moonblast on that turn, I would have won with Gliscor in the end because he didn't have a way to deal with Gliscor. So the impact there is whether he was going to moonlight on that turn. If he wasn't going to moonlight, then I was still going to win that game. If he had survived and clicked Moonlight, then he was probably going to win that game on that turn. But that doesn't happen. Rabambi comes in here. Rabambi is actually going with the timid set, caught me off guard. It didn't have much reason to, other than on the hard guess, I would go Adam at Lopunny. So if that was his rationale, very strong kudos to him because it let Rabambi go first here. Unfortunately for him, I literally live on 1 HP. Super unfortunate for him. Very, very lucky for me. I did not intend to win in that manner. I Gliscor would have won the game if Lopunny had gone down there, just because I don't believe that the Moonblast was going to do enough for the Charizard to come in and get the KO with Outrage unless one of those two attacks KO'd, and I don't think that was going to be the case. So I got somewhat lucky on that end game there. I hit a very important crit on Clefable depending on what it was trying to do. I got the 1 HP survival on the Rabambi, and then I outsped the Charizard so I could reliably KO that. All in all, my two best pieces, the pieces I think I can use the best, both offensively and defensively, offensively with the Mega Lopunny and then defensively with the Gliscor, really shined yet again in this matchup. Shaman did decent work to protect me. Pyukumuku was able to remove the Gyarados from play, which was a really critical thing early on. Florges continues to be trick bait, and so I need to work on solutions to that because I'm leaving myself vulnerable week after week with that Florges set because it's so predictable. And then the Celesteela was unfortunately unable to take off, but I did give it a go in the hopes that maybe it would prove as a reliable sweeper and force opponents to consider other options I might run because my team screams uh, very bulky offense, almost stall, and I don't want to get played too much to that style, and I need to be able to bring some offensive sweepers that are not Mega Lopunny. And so I tried it with Celesteela this week. Unfortunately, was unsuccessful. Nevertheless, I now move to 3-4 after what was again that 0-4 start. I am one game away from bringing this team back to 500. It's an 11 game regular season, so I have ample time to obtain a winning record and maybe even finish as high as 7-4 or 6-5. Either seem like they will secure me a playoff position. So the goal is to win 3 out of the next 4 games to close out the season. Um, I'm hopeful I can do it, but I'll be back next time with the next battle video in this series.